Good afternoon. Yes, it's the afternoon. It's not morning. It's afternoon in Tenerife. Actually, I've been wanting to make videos all week, but the neighbours have been having some construction work done, and it's been very, very noisy. So I've been waiting and waiting, and now it's Friday afternoon. The workers have gone home, and hopefully it'll be a nice, peaceful afternoon now, and I can make this video and maybe a couple of others to try and catch up. So yeah, welcome and good afternoon to you. We're in module 7, and this page is all about non-food ingredients to weight loss. So one of my favorite books, or a book that I've been reading, is Dr. Michael Greger's book, How Not to Diet. It's a sequel from his very, very good book, How Not to Die. And there's a plane coming, so we'll just wait a moment. So what he does very well in the book is it's an unbelievably long book. It's the audio version is 23 hours long, and he goes through a number of scientific articles, research. It's almost unbelievable, actually, the work he's done. But as part of the book, he mentions some non-food ingredients to losing weight, and we can integrate some of these into our weight loss program. So what I've done is I've listed them down here. I'm going to go through a few of them on this video, but of course, as always, you'll find more details below in the text. So the first one, really interesting, is that it seems to be that scientists and researchers now believe that inflammation has actually got quite a lot to do with our propensity to gain weight or to become obese. So it seems like, inflammation is something, when we cut ourselves, we get inflamed, but there's such a thing as chronic inflammation, and this seems to be quite a big factor in us gaining weight. So if we can reduce the amount of inflammation in our bodies, we can reduce the impact of the inflammation on our gaining weight. So the best thing to do, and the tips that researchers propose, is to eat more anti-inflammatory foods. So instead of eating foods that cause inflammation, we want to be eating foods that actually decrease inflammation. Makes sense, doesn't it? Okay, and some of the most anti-inflammatory foods are as follows. Turmeric, ginger, garlic, green and black tea, chamomile tea, and the most anti-inflammatory food components are fiber and flavones. We always seem to keep coming back to that fiber, don't we? And I know I did a whole special session on fiber, but here it is again on this page. This is the importance of fiber. So what fiber also does is it expands the volume of food in our stomach, and this enables us to feel less full. So not only is fiber good for making us feel less full, it's also been found that it's an anti-inflammatory. So the more fiber we eat, the less inflamed our bodies will be. So yeah, if you're in any doubt about fiber, go back to the session on fiber, because it's almost like we need nothing else just to eat fiber. Feed our microbiome. So another tip is to eat foods that have a high water content. So instead of eating really dry foods such as nuts, we want to be concentrating on foods that contain a lot of water, because the foods that contain more water will make us feel fuller, quicker, and help in the weight loss program. Another one is our taste buds. Now this is really interesting, because it seems that the average life of a taste bud is only 10 days. So what it effectively means is that if we eat something and it maybe agrees with us, but we just don't like the taste of it, if we can persist. So for instance, if you don't like oats, which is oats are a really, really healthy food, and I highly recommend actually that you can adopt oats into your diet. But let's say for instance you don't like oats. All we have to do is to persist in eating them for 10 days or more, and suddenly we will have new taste buds which will adapt to the taste that we're giving it, and actually these new taste buds will begin to like the taste of oats. We all remember, don't we, our first beer? I remember tasting beer for the first time and thinking how awful. And now I went for a long walk yesterday, 3 or 4 hours actually, and it was really hot. And afterwards I had a what's called a jarra here in Spain, a good half litre of beer. Wonderful, wonderful. And luckily, beer is plant-based. So yeah, we can use the fact that our taste buds adapt to our advantage, persist a little bit, and we can begin to like the foods that are really healthy. And that's another tip on this list. So, the average fat content of a typical American diet is 34%. So, in other words, of all the foods we eat, 34% of it consists of fat. Now, that doesn't sound like, it doesn't mean anything, does it? Until we put it in context. And researchers think that in our evolution, we were always eating less than probably 10% of fat. And even on animals, which contain the most of our dietary fat comes because we're eating animals. I mean, we're not eating any animals anymore, but I'm talking generally, of course. But the animals that we used to catch on the plains of Africa that we're running, they actually have a very, very low fat content. And the more we can lower the fat content of the diet, the more we can eat. It's almost incredible, but if we can get the fat content of our diet down to below 10%, this really does open the door to eating virtually anything you want in as much quantity as you desire, because we won't get fat. So always thinking about the fat content of our food is important. And actually I've started, after doing the research for this, I've started reducing the fat as well in my I tended to put a little bit too much on the salads, and I'm trying to cut that down. Another little thing on fat, it's much harder for our bodies to turn dietary sugar into fat than it is for our bodies to turn dietary fat into fat. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it? So basically, if you're going to choose between one evil or another, opt for the sugar. It's less likely to be fattening than actually fat. Best thing to do, of course, is to try and cut down on both, but just an interesting little tidbit. So, another real big surprise is that artificial sweeteners do not work. My father will be really disappointed when he finds this out, because he's been adding sweeteners to his tea for as long as I can remember. Turns out, however, that they don't work at all. They actually raise the insulin in our bodies, which effectively increases our appetite. So the next time you're thinking of reaching for a Coke Zero, maybe it's better to have just a normal Coke. Because you'll eat less at the next meal and you'll feel less hungry. So artificial sweeteners, they don't work. Leave them out. Don't do it. Cast them aside. Waste some money. Okay, so next on the list, and I announced this, didn't I, as a non-food list, but it seems to be there's quite a lot of foods on this list, so I'm not sure if the title quite matches it. But salt. It's really important that we reduce our salt. This is something I struggle with. I'm addicted to dry roasted peanuts. They're so nice, aren't they? You know the feeling, don't you? You open the packet and we start eating them, don't we? And we just can't stop. and of course they've been manufactured to create that addiction. And I have to show a lot of willpower actually to resist dry roasted peanuts, because they contain a lot of salt, and what happens is salt makes us thirsty, which makes us drink a lot, which is unhealthy. It's only unhealthy because the drinks that most people tend to reach for are fizzy drinks and sodas. If you actually drink water, then that's obviously okay, but most people will reach for a fizzy drink. So we really need to cut down on salt. Not only that, salt, of course, you know, we all know, don't we, it's linked to heart disease and arteriosclerosis. So cut down on the salt. So the next one on my list is the Hispanic paradox. So even though Hispanics in the USA are economically disadvantaged and virtually in every other aspect disadvantaged, they actually tend to live longer than any other ethnic group. And researchers seem to think it's because they eat a lot of beans. And I highly recommend actually a Cuban black bean stew. You can find some, I'm not sure actually if I've got one. I'm not sure if I've got the black bean stew in my list of recipes, but if not, you can always find it on the internet. But highly recommend it. Very nice. And black beans contain, of all beans, the most protein of any other bean. So people think Hispanics live longer because they eat so many beans. So let's get eating more beans. In fact, there's a book out called Blue Zones, and this guy, I'm sorry I can't remember his name at the moment, but he went out to find the secrets of the longest lived populations in the world. And it turns out that all these populations have the one thing in common: they all seem to eat lots of beans and plant-based foods. So yeah, I actually, until I went plant-based, I never used to eat a lot of beans, and now they're a part of virtually every meal. I really do love beans, especially chickpeas. You know, you can make really nice chickpea salads. You can go to an Indian restaurant and get chana curry, chana puri. Chana is the Indian word for chickpeas. So embrace chickpeas. Top tip. And the last interesting fact is that researchers found out that the food that makes us feel the most satisfied is the humble boiled potato. So if we eat boiled potatoes, we feel full. So let's go and boil some potatoes. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this session. There's more details in the text below. It's really interesting. God, it's July here in Tenerife, and it must be 30 degrees out here. I'm feeling the heat, but I got to the end, and it's really strange being here in the afternoon rather than first thing in the morning. Thanks for being there, and see you in the next session. Bye bye.